Hello, this is Gene. First of all, I'd like to thank about the 10 more subscribers that I got the last time I videoed something. A lot of people, for me, watched a lot, liked that video or watched the video that I did of Owen Benjamin. It was obviously one of my controversial ones because the likes and the dislikes are about the same now. I think the last time I looked at it was 19 to 17. Got some flat earthers in there. People say that I'm stupid to believe that space exists. Uh, it's interesting to see the vitriol that I've got from that. However, I'm all about people having their opinion. Looking at Owen Benjamin as an expert in the field of space or the moon is somewhat foolish for me, although I don't sound like I know what I'm talking about because of my stroke. I know so much more than the guy could even realize, and I've been part of top secret classified jobs, what clearly would prove that we have space, that the world itself is a sphere, and we have thousands of satellites orbiting our planet every day, and we have 10 times of that of just space junk, things that were used to get those satellites into orbit that are just going around the world because of gravity and everything else. So it is nice to look at the comments. I think that's the most I've had since I did my review of The Force Awakens years ago. So obviously he has a fan base, and I knew that by saying things about him that it might get to them. I had this problem before with Tommy Sotomayor. I said something about him as well, and his fans came. And of course, a lot of people came to the channel and said, you know what, you're right about him. And a lot of people did the same thing about Owen Benjamin. Thank you for, well, I can't talk. So, again, I don't have any ill will for him. Anybody can have an opinion about stuff, and I will entertain any of those things. And we can still talk from a skeptical point of view about the moon landing, because I might agree with him. And I said in my video that it's very possible that the United States had a backup plan if we didn't get to the moon, just for propaganda things. But when he goes further than just talking about it as a conspiracy, and he basically says that that didn't happen, and he's starting to go down that flat earther movement as well. And those people don't believe that we have space. And I can't buy into that. That is some of the most pseudoscience that's ever been. So anyway, so I want to talk a little about that. And again, I want to thank the people that have subscribed to my channel. Maybe I'll get to 300 subscribers at some point. But it's nice that other people come into this channel, and when they actually go to my channel, they might look at other my content where I talk about more important things than whether or not Owen Benjamin is basically having a mental breakdown online, because that's what I see. And a lot of people pretty much said that, and other people saying that he has a reason to be that way. And he does. I mean, when you call out the people who are in power in Hollywood, when he calls out the whole pedophilia shit that I know is going on in Hollywood, and I'm with him on that, then they're going to go after him because he's got a platform. No one's going to come after me. I've got no real platform other than an old guy talking about stuff, so it's no big deal. But my other channel, I talk a little about sports, Manchester United. You can see I'm wearing my Clemson hat. Congratulations to Clemson to win their second championship in 3 years, both against Alabama, which is always great. And I like Alabama. If you see my channel, I wear Alabama hat. I've been to several of their games in Tuscaloosa. I was a fan of them when they were just very average in the 80s. So, but they become this monolith that I can't really, I mean, I still support them. But when it gets down to it, if it's the ACC against the SEC, I always go for the team on the ACC because we have gotten no credit ever. So now 3 of the last 6 champions have been from the ACC. Since the playoffs started, there's been one team from the ACC and one team from the SEC that's won a championship, and then Ohio State did. So I think the idea that the SEC is now clearly better than everybody else, I think that's been proven to be false. In the last 3 or 4 years, the bowl results have shown that. And when they actually sit and play against teams that are similar to them, they can't really win all the time. I said it all year that Bama could have been going down that road of being the greatest of all time, because Alabama always has a good defense. So you think they can just win something just with that. And now they had this unbelievable offense. So you're saying maybe you can say that. I would have said that the Florida State team from 2013 is the best ever. But I said we'll know when they get they get punched in the mouth. Now people say, well, they were tested by Georgia, and they were in the national championship game last year, but they came back. So they knew in their mind when they were in the SEC they were losing to Georgia, that they would probably come back and win that game. The other part of that is even if they would have lost that game, they still would have been in the playoffs, because this idea that now we have to have two teams from the SEC just because they're not. Maybe on some chart where they might have more 5-star recruits that they think that they're better. It's just not that way anymore. It's changed quite a bit. We have good coaches that are in the ACC. There are good coaches in the Big Ten. I would say those 3 conferences are the best, and then just a little bit below that is the Pac-12 and the Big 12. These are still good conferences, and any of those teams that are at the top can beat any of those other teams. But when Bama gets exposed, and they've done several times, now clear they've had very successful, and they won championships. But over the years, they've been exposed by a certain type of players. When Manziel did it to him, when Watson did it to him, and this new kid from Clemson did the same thing. And I think in Clemson was the team that actually top to bottom was bigger or stronger, deeper. Clemson is a different never thing. So if everybody said that going to that game, that if Alabama would have won, that they're the greatest of all time, I think at that point that we have to say that Clemson is. If you're going to say the same thing all year about Alabama, and then what Clemson did to Alabama in that game, and I don't think if they play again, obviously without the knowledge of playing them again, but if there was another day that they played, that they hadn't played before, I still think that Clemson wins that game at 8 out of 10. They're just a better team. And I think that their coach is probably a little bit better at this point. Saban is at the end of his career, very successful guy. He's very similar to Belichick. They have the same type of thing, and they'll lose a lot of games, but they'll win big games too. And each time of those games, they didn't really beat. I mean, the thing is, that Alabama, twice they didn't win the SEC championship game. They didn't even get into the championship game, and they got to go in the playoffs with the BCFs. And they ended up winning a title that way. A couple other times they won one time when Texas quarterback got hurt in the first drive. So as great as Alabama's been, and I've seen them up close so many times, so when people say, oh, Alabama's the greatest of all time, they are to a point. But if you have enough time and you have the athletes to complete with them, you clearly can. So this myth of the SEC is over is basically what I'm saying. But again, thank you, and congratulations to Clemson. I've seen Florida State play them many times. I didn't go this year, fortunately, because they destroyed us. I was kind of hoping that they would go down and get another touchdown to have a similar result that they had against us. But Sweeney was class. He didn't do anything there. They could have scored at the end. And many times we've really destroyed Clemson, so I had no issue with them continually trying to score against us. So we had been the big dog, and I'm talking about Florida State. We had been the big dog in the ACC for a long time, and now it's Clemson, and it is, and it's going to be for a while because Florida State is not getting better. So let's get that out of the way. So I talk about sports. So those of you who've seen who've just come here just to listen to Owen Benjamin, and if you subscribed, I talk about that a little bit. I talk about soccer over in England. I'm a Manchester United fan. I'm not a bandwagon guy. I've been on that team. I've been following them right after Fergie was hired. It was kind of hard being over in the States trying to do that. And when I was stationed overseas, I followed them there. So things have changed there. We got a new coach in, and we're playing a lot better. So I'm happy about that. But what I talk a lot on this is I start off being like an anti-feminist or MRA, and I still am. But I don't really talk about those things anymore because those are at the top. They're like low-hanging fruit. I talk many times on this channel about this rabbit hole that you go down once you wake up, once you become red-pilled. And the great thing about Owen Benjamin, he has actually opened people up getting them red pilled. So I'm at the very bottom of that. I mean, I talk about the Holocaust here, and when I believe the narrative of that. I talk about the alt-right, things like that. Um, but what I've seen, and I want to talk about today, is the last couple of days, I sold one of my subwoofers. I'm a guy that I've been an audiophile for a long time. Can't do as much anymore since I'm married, but I still buy stuff, and I have stuff that are 20 years old, 15 years old. And a while back, I bought a subwoofer, Philodine, very nice subwoofer, and I got it at AFES, which is like the Air Force thing, and they have a probably half price than it normally is. This is years ago, and they sent it to me. And it was damaged. Now it would still work, but on the sides of it was damaged. So I called them up, and they said, "Well, it's going to cost like $200 for us to ship it back because it's their fault." And they said they'll send me a new one. So I had two of them, and I had two of them for all these years. So we're getting ready to move in about 6 or 7 months, or earlier, whatever happens. And I said, you know what, I'm going to sell one of these. So I did that. Guy showed up. We started talking. And of course, he was a vet like me. And we started talking about stuff. And this guy is very red-pilled as well. But he's like the area I was at when I was like listening to Steven Crowder, Ben Shapiro, Kevin McInnes, Alex Jones, those guys. And I said, dude, I'm way past you. He's like, I get so angry. I was like, yeah, we all do that. You go through that stage. And so we talked about stuff, and he basically thinks the same thing I think, but he can't really go through that because he's trying to start his own business. And he might actually watch this, and obviously I'll not name his name or anything like that. But people are starting to wake up. Now the question is, and the other guy I talked to was doing some stuff in my house, and he's from South Africa. And after he was done and we started talking, I could tell he was more conservative in nature. We started talking about Trump a little bit, and he likes Trump, even though he thinks that sometimes he acts like a jerk, and I think everybody understands that. I said, what do you think about what's happened in South Africa with the farmers? And you could see the upset that he had, because people want to tell that that's not really happening. We're hearing from the media that that's not really happening. That's not really a crisis. And that kind of like dovetails in what's going on in the southern border here in the United States. But talking about him, and I said, yeah. And he's like, yeah, I got family there, and they're just going through stuff. And he knows stories. He's seen things that happen, stories that's happening. And a lot of his family wants to come to the United States, but they can't really do that. Or they just want to leave or go back to Australia, or not to leave, but they want to go to Australia or New Zealand, and those governments are not really doing that. They think it's racist to import white people to these countries. So I said, yeah, you should be proud. You're South African. You should be able to express your opinion. And he was like, man, I just don't want to sound like I'm racist. And this is the whole thing about guilt. And we talked about it. So he knows what it was. And he knew about male privilege and stuff, or white man privilege. And he's like, yes, I don't know what type of white man privilege that I have, because I'm a working man. I do this stuff. I said, I came here legally. I immigrated about 20 years ago, and I've been working as a working man for this entire time. So he said there are a lot of people, he's a little bit younger than me, but these guys are like Generation X guys like me. I'm an older guy, almost a boomer. I'm more a boomer, but I'm still Generation X. So these guys have been waking up, and I think that we've reached those type of people. And even though we have this idea that the younger generation is more conservative, and again, it's not really being conservative or liberal, and people continually tries to paint whatever the alt-right is. When you're advocating for your people, and whether they're white or black, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're on one side or the other when it comes to the political spectrum. And that's the message we have to get through. We just can't turn our back on guys that are more liberal in nature if they're talking about saving Europeans or going to the border and saying that the wall should be there. We need to talk to those people. So it's, even though a lot of people my age, maybe longer than me, are waking up, many of them don't go to over the top of that rabbit hole because they can't, because financially they can't do it. If you're a man and you're raising a family and stuff, you can't go on the internet and start saying the shit that I say. This guy that I talked to, that I sold my subwoofer to, he couldn't do this, and he knows this. But It's encouraging to me that people are waking up, but they need to be younger. And I know that the movement itself is for younger people. But at the same time, the younger people cannot turn your back on us or those you think that we have this boomerism in us, because we have the financial backing to do things to help you, to help everybody. Regardless, I think even if you continually rail at the idea that somebody who's over 55, let's say, has ideas that caused all of this shit, even though they're babies when we changed the rules back in 65. I mean, I was just born at that point. That somehow that's their fault. Well, okay, you can think that way, but we got to get past that. And whatever it is, whether it's the alt-right or advocation for our people, we need to talk about it. And you need to be open about it. Him and I sat outside and talked about it. This other guy was inside my house. He's like, I really can't have this conversation outside, and even though the area that I'm at is probably more conservative, the demographics are changing, and we know that demographics is our destiny. So no matter if we talk about it, it's saying that we are afraid that the bright man or the brown man is going to take over. No, all we really want to do is defend the West, and now those guys might be at a different level, but I'm in a different way. I know that they will not assimilate to what the West should be. They want to have their own culture and have it that way. And they want people like me, and as racist as it sounds, for me to do my own job, pay taxes so they can have their culture. There's nothing wrong with Mexicans wanting to be Mexican, but they should be that in Mexico. Same thing if you want to come here legally, nobody has any problem with that. And they continually try to inflate this or conflate this when we're having this conversation about the wall. They say immigration, and they're like, well, they want to come here. They want to come here. Immigrants coming here, and they try to say that illegals and legal is basically the same. That's how the Democrats say it. Or if they're coming here seeking asylum. Now, let's be 100% honest about that. Probably less than 1% of the people, even less than that, have a claim for asylum for this country. But the problem is these people don't stop at the first safe haven. They come to the United States because of economic reasons. And that's just clearly what it is. And they know that our welfare state will support them. We won't let them die. And if they need health care, they go to the emergency room, and the rest of us pay for this. Now, we are a very charitable country, and we are. Even conservatives, who people will call you racist all the time, but they'll still support things financially. From day one, they have. I've been a liberal all my life. Even back then, when I still thought that they didn't understand things, these guys were always out trying to do stuff in the community, trying to help people regardless of their color. I'm not talking about what happened in the Jim Crow South. I'm talking about the people that I grew up with. I didn't have any inkling when I was growing up in South St. Petersburg or East St. Louis that it was really anything different between the people that were there. There was mothers and fathers in the home. Some of them were black, some of them were white. We all played together. We did things together. There was none of this other shit. That all changed when the fathers left and when the society raised up the idea that single mothers was the greatest thing of all time. And that destroyed both communities, and it still is hurting us right now. And it's really, really, really hurting the black community and in the white community, because the epidemic of opioids is just going through the white community as well. And a lot of these families are the same problem: single mothers or not attentive enough parents at home. So we'll listen to these two guys, and they come from basically they talk about the same things. And one of them's from South Africa, who came here legally, is a guy that works every day in houses and stuff. The other one was a vet. He's going to be an entrepreneur. And they're having they feel the same thing. And it's because I try to explain to both of them, and this is something that I understand, is that our people, when I say our people, I mean people that look like me. Say whatever you want to say about that. We've lost our collective soul. We forgot what made us great. and that's in Europe, and that's the United States. Now, the United States is a little different, but it was that this country was European. I mean, overwhelmingly European for a long time. In my lifetime, it was. So, and now we've allowed this stuff to happen. And we talked about this, and I don't like continually say, oh, it's the Jews and all those other things, but the people that have the power are the same people. When we're talking about putting up a wall on the southern border, we have Schumer 10 years ago or 8 years ago saying that, yeah, we should have something like there, and all the Democrats saying the same thing, but now they don't want to say it, and it becomes immoral to have a wall. But they will still give Israel about $4 billion a year for that wall. Now it's for other things, but as part of that money goes to that wall and to keep it up. But it's immoral in this country because of how our country was formed. This idea that this country was supposed to be about everybody comes here just because it might say something on the Statue of Liberty, that's not what the framers thought. You need to look at the first documents that said that they wanted immigration from areas that were European stock. They didn't want Africans to come in this country, even though we had some of that from the late slavery, or South Americans or Central Americans. Now, you can say what you want to say about that because clearly they probably were white nationalists. And of course, they wouldn't think that way because they would have been what they think they are, right? Everybody around them were that way. So people look back and say, well, look at them now. They're white nationalists, white supremacists, or whatever. So, I mean, doesn't necessarily mean that everything they did was right, okay? But we grew as a country, and we had immigration, and we opened up the floodgates, and part of that is okay. But you don't want to lose the culture that you have, and the media continually pushes this narrative that America has no culture, and by extension, because we're from Europe, most of us, that means that European white people really don't have a culture either. Although we built and created the West, the laws, the buildings, the infrastructure, the technology is all from us. They continue, or the art, the music, that it means that we really have no culture. That somehow immigrating, whether legally or unlegally, these type of peoples that have a different flavor of life that will help in our culture. It hasn't worked anywhere else. There's always end up with strife and wars, and that's what's coming. So at the end of this conversation that with both of them, it came down that they both believe there's going to be some sort of revolution in this country. And I gotta believe that they're right. And I don't know what to think about that. And I don't want to deal with the fact that my kid's going to have to deal with that, because they will. It may become earlier than I think. I thought it's going to be probably after I'm gone, but it may come earlier than that. One of them said probably the last 10 years. And the other one said probably like 5 years. They really think that something like this might happen. And obviously, if the Democrats continually doing what they're doing, if they try to impeach Trump, if he comes out and says he decides that what's going down the border is now a national emergency, and then he just has the Army engineers start building a wall, well, they probably will try to impeach him. And that would be a bad thing. It will be a lot of civil unrest, what we're seeing in Europe and France, and it's now in Germany. These are the markers that you can just say, this started, and eventually this happens. Europe is going to be burning. And then what are we supposed to do? Stand back and say, are we going to learn from this? Are we going to support the governments over there that continually turn their back on the will of the people, like in Britain with Brexit? So when we talk about the southern border, you got Schumer and Pelosi and Feinstein and all these guys. Years ago, they said, yeah, we should have some sort of barrier down there. Now they're not. These are the same people, especially Feinstein and Schumer. These are Jews. And the idea that I have no issue with people born in Israel saying that Israel is their homeland. I don't sit there and say that I'm German and France, that they're my homelands. Now, those are the people, the stock that I came from, and I support the people of that country to advocate for themselves. However, I am an American, and they did the same damn fucking thing. Instead of just allowing Israel to just take our money and do it for their own border defense, they need to do the same thing here. You can hear the phone is ringing, but I'm going to continue on with this. And their allegiances are somewhere else. Now, if it's just one or two of them, that'd be one thing. But they're overrepresented in Congress, Senate, in our media, in their financial places, everywhere they're overrepresented. And they're not like some of them are one good or what. They all have allegiance to Israel. And when the world comes down to it, they think that that's their homeland, regardless if their family has been here since 1874. They believe that that's their homeland. Fair enough. And a lot of them it's assimilated fine. But when you go and after the president says this is the crisis that we're having at the southern border, you can get on there and say it's manufactured, that this isn't real, that these guys are not coming over the border and killing our people, that the drugs are not coming over the border and killing 60, 70,000 people a year, that's manufactured. And there are so many fucking people online on Twitter that believe this shit. They don't think that it's until it actually inflicts them and someone in their family gets overdosed on this shit and they find out it's from there. But even then, the girl in Iowa gets killed. Their parents are like, oh, I'm going to take in people. It's like we're doing it to ourselves. And, as one person, I cannot solve this. I can't. White people in general, Europeans need to wake up. And because what's coming in the future, and I don't want to be so black pilled, but it's clearly going that way, that they need to wake up or we're going to just have a very, very bad time. And the people that has the motivation at the end is going to win. And right now, it's not white people. It's not European people. There are some. So anyway, we just need to continually talk about this. Wake up the young people. Talk about responsibility. Talk about, it's always great about the individual stuff, but at the end of the day, we're all part of a community. We're all part of where we all come from, a culture. Lest us say the race that we have. Nobody chooses the race. Nobody does. And when people say something like that, that's a fair point. That you shouldn't be blamed for how you're born. I 100% believe that. However, you should defend what it's for. You should be there to talk about the history, the good and the bad, and you should be part of the community that is that. You should be that way. And we need to actually instruct our kids about this in a fair place. You talk about all cultures, of course. You just don't say white people are above everybody else. There are different things, different cultures that come in to it. And it's a very, very hard lesson to have, because they're told from day one when they go to high school or grade school that they're the problems, not the girls per se, because they're the minority, although they're not. That they're the oppressed, even though they're not. It's the young men, and when the young men have been shamed when they're so young, it makes them not really good leaders and fathers in the future, and that's what we're seeing right now. And again, I could talk about this forever. It's why our young generation they're lost, and a lot of boys and young men are killing themselves because they're lost, because they have no value, and it gives me back to the collective soul that we have of a people, that we've lost it and we've got to get it back so we can bring up those guys to be the leaders in the future. Thank you for watching. Again, thank you for those who actually subscribed to my channel. You guys have a good day, and just let me know what you think in the comments, and we'll talk to you guys later. Bye.